I'm Jimmy Hart, and this is Unreasonably Optimistic.
What's up, man?
Not much, just having another great day in Tuscaloosa.
I love it. It's hard to have I don't want to say it's hard to have a bad day in Tuscaloosa because everybody had a bad day a little while back. I didn't, we'll have to certainly talk about what that was like, especially with your experience from where you were before, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Take me back. Let's do a quick history that brought you to today.
Yeah. Well, I moved to Tuscaloosa, Alabama about 7.5 years ago, originally for a job at the university. I served as director of marketing at the University of Alabama for about 5 years. We did a lot of really cool, really fun stuff. If you have seen any of the Where Legends Are Made commercials or ads, that campaign was something that our office worked on really closely. A lot of our time and effort went to admissions marketing as well as fundraising communications. And like I said, got to do a lot of great work, really enjoyed it. But higher education as an industry is not one where marketers really get to flex their creativity muscles all that often. So I'd spent almost 15 years in higher education in total, and was ready to try something different. I had an established relationship with Kelsey Rush, who is our president and CEO. So when the opportunity arrived that they were hiring a Marcom position, it sounded like a great opportunity for me to get off campus and to do something that was going to be fun and exciting. And it has definitely turned out to be fun and exciting.
Perfect. Perfect. So really, the getting into tourism was not where, in a lot of cases, people have kind of always been there and then
Mhm.
worked into the position of marketing, but you sort of parlayed your marketing experience into tourism.
That's correct. Yeah. I actually have a general degree in business management, and tried to make it as a sports writer right after I graduated college. But 2004 was a pretty bad time to try to make it into print journalism. So it wasn't long before I made the move into PR and then to marketing. And so I have been in higher ed, PR, and marketing for quite a while. But when it comes down to it, most of what I do is storytelling, whether that's journalistic writing, marketing, public relations. It really comes down to storytelling. And so at each of the universities I worked at, selling the hometown was part of the deal. No one wants to go spend 4+ years in a town that they're not going to enjoy. So we were always selling that host city as an element of what we did. So it wasn't completely foreign to me to think about what's going to attract people to our destination. But it is definitely a different audience than I got used to working with in higher education. Working at universities, you're talking to a lot of 16, 17-year-olds who are not spending their own money. Maybe it's their parents' money, maybe it's scholarships or loans, but you show them a good time and it could be a pretty easy sell. With what we do now, I'm talking to adults. A lot of times it's parents or grandparents who are bringing kids along, and they are spending their hard earned cash. So it's important to make sure they understand the return on investment they're going to get, for lack of a better term. They need to know that they're going to have fun, that everyone's going to enjoy themselves, that they're going to be safe, that the things they're going to see are actually going to be open. You and I are old enough to remember the Vacation movie. Sorry, folks, the park's closed. Moose should have told you out front. We are definitely trying to avoid that and make sure that everyone who pulls into Tuscaloosa gets the experience they're looking for.
Yeah, it's what's really funny about that. You said that you get to work with adults, and you bringing up vacation is like totally lands this point for me, which is just because they're older doesn't make them adults,
True story.
right? That's right. You talking about going into sports writing and looking at the state of sports writing now, and
Mhm.
particularly, Sports Illustrated. Maybe this was a better choice.
Yeah, yeah. In the long run, I think I found a lot more stability than if I had stuck with that original plan.
Who'd have ever thought that something like sports writing would have been, on the
Yeah.
decline? But it's yeah, it's kind of a joke these days. Sadly,
Yeah.
sadly. Okay, so really, I mean, you kind of hit on what you sort of like about tourism, certainly juxtaposed to what you were doing
Mhm.
previously. Um, and then, where are you originally from again?
Born and raised in Kansas. So I was in a little farm town up near Topeka, Kansas, until I was 18. Big Kansas State Wildcats fan, Kansas City Royals, and living the good life right now as a Chiefs fan.
That's
Had the
that's right.
privilege to attend college at the University of Tulsa in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So most of my professional life was spent in Oklahoma before coming out here to Alabama.
Okay, you familiar with Tampa, Kansas, by chance?
I know of it. I don't think I've ever been there. Um, I was
Funny story. It's a funny story before you get into this, but Tampa, Florida told me about Tampa, Kansas. There's only 104 people that live there, by the way.
so I graduated with 52 kids, and that was with three farm towns consolidated into one high school. So those small Kansas towns are not foreign to me at all.
Wow, that is small. Okay. So, you know, obviously, and you've been on both sides of this. So this is a really interesting thing. Like Tuscaloosa is known for one thing.
Yep.
Now, I went to school there, so I know it I know it from the 90s, and I know it from a much different perspective than how it's known today. Like it's
Mhm.
not even the same town that it was in the 90s.
Right.
It shouldn't even be named T-town anymore, in my opinion, because it's such a different place. But what else would people be really surprised to know about Tuscaloosa? Because there's, I mean, when you think Tuscaloosa, it's football and that's it.
Mhm.
But from your perspective, what would people be really surprised to learn about T-town?
It is not wrong to think of Tuscaloosa as a college town. We certainly are. The university is a huge driver of commerce in all ways. But there is so much more, and to call us just a college town would be wrong. One thing I find as I speak with potential visitors or colleagues in the tourism industry is most people are surprised to learn how cosmopolitan the community is. And when I say that, what I mean in a lot of ways is the international influence that the community has. A lot of that obviously comes through the university. A lot of that comes through having Mercedes Benz headquartered here. But this is not just a little hick town in the South. And I'm a food guy first and foremost. But so that I think paints a really clear picture that people are shocked to get to Tuscaloosa. And of course, we've got the barbecue. Of course, we've got some great meat and threes. But you're also going to find some really authentic foreign foods. We've got Rolf's, that is a really authentic German place. Mr. Chin's is a real deal Chinese place. But we've got Japanese, we've got Thai, we've got Greek and Lebanese. We've got a French place, French brasserie in town now. So pretty much whatever you're looking for from a cuisine standpoint, we're going to be able to meet that need. And that's the example that hits home closest to me. But this is not just a college town with a couple pizza places and a Best Buy. Even though we're not a huge city, you're going to find a lot of those big city amenities that a lot of the destinations we would consider our competition really just can't deliver on.
So what you're trying to tell me is that Tuscaloosa is shaking the the reputation as a drinking town with a football problem.
That might be taking it a step too far. Both of those things might still have a role to play. But if you're not interested in those two things, we can definitely still fill a week for you.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's perfect. That's a perfect parlay. Before I ask this, what's the current population in T-Town?
When students are here, we're looking at about 100,000 for what I might call the Tuscaloosa greater metropolitan area. We've got the city of Tuscaloosa proper
Generously.
and Northport, just north of the river. Our organization actually receives funding from both Tuscaloosa and Northport, as well as Tuscaloosa County. So we do try to bring visibility to all of our attractions within that county region. And one of the great things about that is that it includes a lot of the outdoor activities that people are looking for. Particularly folks from the north who are getting frozen out right now, can still head down here and fish, hunt, camp, hike, boat, you name it. We've still got that going on down here.
So if it's not football season,
Hmm.
right? If it's you know, say early June. I don't know, that's hot down there, but it's not football season,
Yep.
and I'm coming in for one good day. What's an ideal day that you would tell me? What are the things I need to cover off if I'm there for 24 hours?
Yeah, well, okay. So, I'm gonna start with breakfast at either City Cafe or Rama Jammas, two locations you're probably familiar with. Um, if you're a sports person, you can head over to the Bryant Museum and find out everything you want to know about Crimson Tide athletics. If you're not a sports person, we've got a number of other great museums that you can stop into. We've got the Tuscaloosa Civil Rights Trail, the Natural History Museum on campus, several art galleries in town. And I'll take the chance to plug that we have an all in one ticket that's available where you can pay one admission and get access to all of those museums, including our children's hands on museum. So that's a great offering for families. For lunch, I'm going to send you to one of our barbecue places. You've got Dreamland and Archibald's, of course. One of my favorites is the ribs down at Thomas Rib Shack, um, uh, just off of 15th down near Stillman College. So some great options there. Um, if you have not been to Tuscaloosa in the last few weeks, then you haven't had a chance to check out our new Pop Stroke facility. I don't know if you've heard about this, Gail, but Pop Stroke is a concept that is heavily invested in by Tiger Woods, and it's kind of a top golf for miniature golf. So it's two 18-hole miniature golf courses with a restaurant and a bar. You pay one entry fee and you have unlimited play for the day. You can even leave and come back if you want to. But they've also got ping pong tables and cornhole and a playground out there for the kids. So either check out mini golf or go hit one of our actual golf courses. Old Colony is our public course that we're very proud of and is home to the Crimson Tide golf team. But we've got several courses you can get to. Um, then head outside in the evening, and that might be dinner at River with a view out onto the Riverwalk. That might be dinner on Timerson Square out on the patio in front of Decades Pub and Grub or Jalapenos Mexican Grill. Um, and then head down to the Riverwalk and just stretch your legs, burn off dinner, soak up some outdoor. um, I'd also want to say that we are doing a really good job of trying to keep public events running during the off season. So that might be the movies in the park. That might be our summer concert series down at Government Plaza. But if you're going to be in town during the off season, be sure and check out our website, visittuscaloosa.com. We've got a great events calendar on there. And we do try to make sure that all of our public free events get included. So anyone who's in town can just stroll right up and enjoy themselves.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the business of getting people there, right?
Yeah.
So who are you trying? You talked about people come from up north, but we're talking about visitors and we're talking about increasing tourism. Who are you trying to get to show up to Tuscaloosa?
We know that a lot of people come to town for the university, whether that is for sports, whether that is for a student visit or visiting family who's attending, or a potentially an academic conference that's being hosted at the university. And so a big part of what we want to do is just get those folks to come in a day or two early or stay a day or two later, and enjoy some leisure time here in town around whatever their primary use case was. So anyone who's coming for the university needs to stay a little extra time. And, if we get, a third of those visitors to do so, that is statistically significant for our economy, especially for our restaurants and our hotels. So that's definitely something we're looking for. One audience that has really been under leveraged in terms of both the offerings we have, but also how we've been storytelling, are people who are interested in those outdoor adventures. I am sitting right on the edge of downtown right now, and there are 5 major bodies of water within 25 minutes of our parking lot. That includes Lake Lurleen State Park, Lake Tuscaloosa, as well as Lake Harris, and the Black Warrior River that's running right out here outside my window. Um, so, if you want to fish, if you want to wakeboard, anything you want to do with your boat, or if you are a hiker, a camper, a disc golf player, any of those things, definitely come check us out. We have got a lot more than you probably know about. And at least for now, it's going to be a lot less crowded than probably some of those other places you've been fighting to get your ticket to.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
Another thing I would say is we would love to see more. We'd love to see more people stopping in Tuscaloosa on their way to one of the other major attractions around the area. A lot of people don't realize this, but we are almost exactly halfway between Atlanta and New Orleans. So, you're thinking 3.5 hours either direction, and we're right here on the interstate. So if you're going to or from one of those places, spend the night here in Tuscaloosa and we'll show you a great time.
So, and I think you kind of, my next question was going to be a little bit around like where people are coming from, but it really is all over, because most of it is going to be a lot of, like you said, a lot of university
Mhm.
based visits. Are you bringing people in for like, like conferences and business stuff? And I mean, this terrible, awful word called that people use in the industry, bleisure, which is this business and
Right.
leisure blend. I need to come up with something new for that. But do y'all get a lot of business travel there, or is it kind of not really?
We do. We really do. And I should really thank some of our partners in the community for how successful that has been. The Bryant Conference Center on campus has been a great partner with us. The Embassy Suites Hotel here in town has some great meeting space. And there's a handful of other venues too that have some great corporate meeting spaces and provide some great service to those customers. Um, Jasmine Rainey, who is our director of tourism sales, has been doing some great work the last couple years, going down to Montgomery and up to Huntsville to meet with professional and governmental associations that host meetings and trainings. And we've done a great job of getting some of those to locate here in Tuscaloosa, and hosted some really good events. We've got a couple more really good ones coming up this spring and summer. Really excited to welcome those folks to town. And particularly as we bring more stuff online, like the Pop Stroke facility, we've got a mixed use food and entertainment location called the Venue that's relatively recently opened. That's great for that audience. And as we continue to develop pieces like that, we think we'll continue to generate more demand from that audience.
What tools and techniques are you using to get people's attention, and how are you tracking ROI for that?
There are more options than we have the time or the resources to pursue, no doubt about that. But it's a really interesting time, especially as a marketer. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff we can do with digital right now. And investing time and effort into our website, and then making sure that we retarget and capture those individuals who have already kind of raised their hand and identified themselves as being interested, is an area of focus for us, something we'll be putting more time and energy into, and is probably our highest return on investment area that we have. We do have a handful of forms on our website where people can request more information, request that we send them a visitor's guide, stuff like that. So we're always paying attention to that data. Where is that interest coming from? What are people saying they're looking for, to help us drive our messaging? But then we also try to do a good job of maintaining our audiences from the events and attractions that are already in place that are successful. So the Druid City Art Festival, the Kentuck Festival of the Arts, are two great art programs that we have here in Tuscaloosa, that have long history, strong traditions, and a lot of repeat guests and repeat vendors. So, making sure that we don't lose ground with audiences like that is definitely a big part of what we're doing. Within the state, there are a handful of times and places where it makes sense to communicate directly to Alabamians in our neighboring regions. So we do employ some print advertising for some of that stuff, as well as a little bit of digital and radio. Um, and that's primarily to drive attendance, drive participation in things like Tuscaloosa Oktoberfest and Tuscaloosa Restaurant Week, where we want to make sure and get those overnight drive trippers. We're looking at doing uh, a lot more digital at a branding and awareness level. That's something that we're still kind of figuring out exactly what our mission is going to be, or what our message is going to be for that mission. But we do know some geographies, but also some just consumer personas that we really want to try to hit in on. That's going to be a mix of digital and email. We do quite a bit of work to make sure that our email list stays robust and up to date, so that we can keep in touch with that audience that's self-identified. But so there are the platforms and the avenues that I think most of us are using right now that have a very low barrier to entry, and pretty decent transparency, whether that's social media advertising through platforms like Facebook and Instagram or WhatsApp, or digital advertising through the Google Ad Network, that's relatively self service. There are times when we're going to need to do something more sophisticated than that, or more time consuming than I can really do just at my own desk. So we'll work with a digital partner to do some of that more sophisticated targeting. Um, but for the most part, we're able to do a lot of that in house. We are very lucky to have our partners at the University of Alabama, who are interested not just in tourism but also economic development and real estate. And so they have been great partners to work with in terms of collecting, sharing, and analyzing data. Can't say enough about that as a resource. Um, I can say that we are also a partner with Zartico. For anyone who's not familiar, that's a data firm that specializes in providing dashboards and analysis within the tourism industry. So we've got quite a bit of purchasing data and travel tourism stuff that we're able to get through that. That's very valuable. But also just our friends at the city of Tuscaloosa. 9 times out of 10, we are working towards common goals, and as coaches like to say, pulling in the same direction. So they have some tools that we don't, we have some tools that they don't, but we've got a great relationship that allows us to share that information back and forth, so that we're all working with the same information and doing our best to approach those goals together.
I think that's one of the more consistent, themes that we've heard is when there's collaboration, right? When the business owners and the city leaders and the organizations that are all fed from the same trough, so to speak.
Hmm.
When you all figure out that you're like, oh, we can work together and this will make everything better and it's easier if we get
Yeah,
along. There's a lot of good comes out of that.
absolutely. We actually just in the last, I think the last 6 months, we've welcomed new CEOs to both our Chamber of Commerce and our Parks Department. And both of those gentlemen have just turned out to be incredible partners, have great visions, great enthusiasm for the city. And so, we went through that period of angst thinking, okay, what's going to happen next? And just two great hires, and couldn't be happier with how those relationships are turning out.
There's another hire that we'll have to see whether or not it really is great.
We've got our eyes
Yeah,
closely on that.
I know. And so, are there any strategies or any like creative campaigns that you can that are top of mind where that you were like, this was a really creative way we did something, or is there one where you were like, I know this is going to work, and it totally fell on its face, like you ended up with a mouth of dirt on it?
Yeah, what one that I would really like to brag about is something we did last summer. As I mentioned, one of our biggest challenges is just resources. And one of the ways that presents itself is content capturing and creation. Me and my team, we can't be everywhere at once, and we don't always necessarily have the best tools to capture some things that we want to. So last spring, we had been in contact with a social media influencer, a young woman out of North Carolina who goes under the handle Magnolia Megan. And they were interested in coming down here to Tuscaloosa for a visit. But, we didn't have a specific goal for that visit in mind. And we really just couldn't figure out the financials of how to make it work with, what she charged and the operating expenses to pull that off. So we'd kind of put it on the back burner. But they didn't give up on us and reached out and said, hey, we really want to figure out how to make this work. What are parameters you'd be comfortable with? And we ended up having that conversation right as we were starting to market our Tuscaloosa Restaurant Week that we had last June. So we came up with an agreement where they came down for Restaurant Week, had a chance to participate in all of that stuff. They gave us a slight discount, but where we really got the bang for our buck in that relationship was that they agreed to give us all of their B-roll. Everything they shot, they put on a hard drive for us and handed it over. And so, they did a great job creating content that she pushed out through her channels on Instagram and TikTok and Pinterest, and a total pro. Magnolia Megan and her team just did a great job while they were here, and absolutely earned every penny we paid them. But beyond that, just getting what ended up being about 1.5 terabytes of video footage from that week that we're then able to have in our archive and use for a number of different things moving forward has just been an immense tool for us. So I guess the lesson there is, shoot what you're after, but don't forget it's probably going to be useful in some other way too. So make sure you get a copy of all the files, and that'll really help protect the investment that you made in some pieces like that.
That's great. Yeah, that is huge. By the way, I can just tell you right now, like having an asset library is massive.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's been, I guess, 7, 8 months now since we had them up here. And I couldn't even tell you the number of times we've dipped back into that footage. And since they were here over, I think it ended up being 4 days total, visiting many different venues while they were here, we can stick that footage into another project and it doesn't look out of place at all.
Were you about to mention something else
Yeah,
when I brought that up?
something that didn't work quite as well. We recently completed some market research that confirmed for us that in the audience's perspective, our barbecue is the food that defines Tuscaloosa, and I mentioned a couple of those places earlier. But so we are in the process of putting together a barbecue trail experience that our visitors will be able to take advantage of. And I was probably a little naive in thinking that anyone in town who's ever put barbecue sauce on anything was just going to say, absolutely, we want to be a part of this and we're willing to do all the work for you to make it a success. And, I kind of forgot that running a restaurant is hard work. And that just because you're good at making food doesn't necessarily mean you are going to understand every picture I paint in terms of the marketing benefits of something like this. So and please understand, I'm not throwing shade at any of our restaurateurs with this. This is 100% my naivety in thinking that everyone was just gonna fall in line and be excited to do things Jimmy Hart's way. Found out going to need to be a little more flexible with that, but it's still going to be a great attraction. We'll be sure and get you signed up for that, Gail. And the barbecue aficionados out there who make it to several of our destinations are going to stand to get a very unique Tuscaloosa Barbecue Trail T-shirt in return for their participation. So a bit of a false start, but
Yeah,
still, very optimistic about how we'll roll it out.
this is a true statement. Is that a good business is not always run by a good business owner. And so that you know what I mean? Like just because you have a great restaurant because you're a great chef, that doesn't mean you're good at any of the other things. And again, that's not you didn't start a restaurant because you were a good marketer. You started a restaurant because you love food and you're a good
Yeah,
chef. You know what I mean? Like that those kind of things don't always go together.
yeah,
So
and I mean these are places that are full. Every night they're open without my help.
yeah.
So it's not like they were
Yeah.
waiting for me to show up and save them. Our barbecue establishments are doing very well in this town.
We talked a little bit about you brought up Zartico,
Mhm.
which is a um, data uh, platform that you're using.
Right.
What are some other tools in your tech stack that you guys leverage?
We do have a CRM that we operate off of. Folks in the tourism industry will recognize Simple View. That's definitely something that we leverage heavily. Zartico is obviously part of that, as I said. On the marketing side, um, you really just can't. Uh, you have to admit that Google just provides some tools. So we're using it GA4 and we're using Tag Manager. And it might not be the Rolls Royce of analytics, but it gets the job done and the price is right. Um, I'm trying to think. Our website is a WordPress website, and as far as I know, we continue to stick with that. We do run our email marketing at a Mailchimp, another platform a lot of people are really familiar with. We use Sprout Social for some of our social media management tools. Um, on the marketing team, we lean on Trello as our project management solution to help keep track of deadlines and keep things on time. Um, I'm trying to think what I'm forgetting. I'm sure there's more, but that's the stuff that I'm in on a daily basis.
What about what about like trainings or any where you go is source of like new information, any recent books or podcasts, anything like that you've that's top of mind for you?
Well, as far as books go, I've been on a fiction kick lately. So these aren't new, but the two books that I always recommend to people who are wanting to get into what I do are Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. Great book. I really think that tells the story of how things go viral better than anything that's been written since. And it was written in the 90s. So, what are you going to do? But there's another book called Asking the Right Questions that I really like. It is not a pleasure read. It reads more like a textbook, but it's a book I was introduced to in college, and I actually wore out my first copy, and I'm on my second. So I really do recommend that. Podcasts, obviously, unreasonably optimistic is at the top of the list. But one that I never miss is Marketplace from American Public Media. You might be able to hear it on your local NPR station. I just listen to it on my smart speaker while I play video games most of the time. But in terms of keeping up with what's going on in the economy, what is driving consumer decision making, how much your audience has to spend, and what they're looking at as opportunities and challenges for how to spend it. I really do get a lot of good information from there, and at least once a week, I'm emailing a link to one of their stories to my colleagues because I think it's something they need to hear.
It's interesting. Okay, I haven't. I hadn't. I'm not real familiar with that one,
Mhm.
so I'll have to check that out for sure.
I've also really enjoyed some opportunities that I've encountered lately through Southern Travelers Explore, through STS and Destinations International. So for people who are in the industry, those are some things I'd recommend they look at.
What about are there any industry conferences or speakers that you regularly try to seek out?
With my relative newness to the industry, being a year and a half in, I don't know that I'm the expert there, but I will tell you one thing that I'm keeping an eye out for, something that I'm hoping to, or a topic that will get me to sign up for conferences moving forward, is accessibility related travel. This was something that I really kind of got interested in after hearing a couple speakers at the Destinations International Conference down in Dallas last year. But there is a massive demand of people with mobility limitations who want to travel, but specifically want to go to a destination where those limitations are going to be planned for, and where they can have an experience that they're really going to enjoy, particularly if they're traveling with friends and family. They want to be able to keep pace with everyone they're traveling with. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward to learning more about. One thing many people don't know yet is that the University of Alabama has the nation's premier adapted athletics department. They are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year, and in that time, they have won 25 national championships. This spring, they will host the College Wheelchair National Basketball Championships for the second year in a row. We are hoping that that will become a semi-permanent relationship, as we have the only dedicated adapted athletics facility in Division One in the United States. And so we kind of have a an anchor here in Tuscaloosa for that accessibility driven audience. And it's our hope that having those student athletes here in town, many of whom are international students and play for their Paralympic teams from their home country, we're hoping that they're really going to serve as a focus group or a cultural driver for helping make sure that, as we build and renovate hotels, as we renovate sidewalks, all of these things that we do to update the city, that we're doing in a way that accounts for those individuals with mobility limitations. The Pop Stroke facility that I told you about earlier, it has two 18-hole courses, and one of those is fully ADA compliant. So if you're in any kind of wheelchair or using another mobility assist device, you can still go out there and play mini golf with your friends and family just like everybody else. So bringing that kind of stuff online, and then understanding how best to communicate to that audience that's looking for it is something that I think is a real opportunity for us here in Tuscaloosa, is an underserved opportunity for a lot of people in our industry, and is something I'm keeping an eye out to learn more about moving forward.
That's super interesting. It really is. I mean, I'm an alumni, and I had no idea that Alabama had all those facilities for accessibility. That's crazy.
It's really something. When you're in town, you should swing by and see it. The facility is called the Strand Harden Arena, named after Margaret Strand and Brent Harden, who founded the program. Brent currently serves as the athletic director. Margaret is on faculty at the university. I should say Dr. Harden, actually. She is in a wheelchair and has been an incredible advocate for those students on campus. But that facility, it's got a dedicated weight room where all of the equipment is set up to facilitate student athletes in wheelchairs. The locker rooms are set up with that in mind, to the extent that the floors in front of the lockers have just a slight decline. So that if a student is sitting in front of their locker in their wheelchair, they don't accidentally start rolling away from their locker. Just little things like that that I probably never would have thought of. They've thought of all of those things with this facility, and it's incredible to see.
That really is. That's cool. I'll have to look into that. Well, listen, you've given us so much of your time so generously. I don't want to take up any more of it today. But if we want to learn more about what's going on in Tuscaloosa or get in touch with you, where should we go?
Visit Tuscaloosa.com is definitely the source to go to. Get in touch with us there. I'd also say check out our social media. We have the privilege of working with a great social media team, and we will make sure you stay hungry with the stuff that we post, as well as making sure that you're informed of events. But you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok under Visit Tuscaloosa. And if you ever want to reach out to us through those platforms, we do pay attention to those inboxes. So you can message us there and keep abreast of what's going on in town.
That's awesome. Well, Jimmy, thank you so very much. And again, I appreciate your time and all the knowledge.
Thank you, Gail. It's been a real pleasure.